What is good, folks? My name is Easy Peach and welcome back to Easy Storytelling. Today I am over the moon because I get to bring to you Intro to the Animetaverse Part 2, The Emergence. This is my Dune 2 of the Animetaverse and I can't wait for you to see it. If you haven't seen Part 1, check that out in the description. I'm pleased to say that Part 2 is of much better quality in my opinion, with it being twice the length, having some massive plot developments, and over 100 new pieces of artwork that I painstakingly created with Midjourney for it. This is big, and it's serious. This has taken me over 6 months to create on the side of other work, This isn't my main job per se, but I have been building this world for over 2 years, and when I'm not working on our new expansion, Monsters, I've been putting time towards this. Part 3 will be a lot quicker. There isn't going to be an outro for this video, so I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this. I appreciate you big time, and I'll catch you for Part 3. Enjoy. Following a devastating blow to mankind, pushing humanity to their only escape from Earth's dying breath, a parallel universe known as the Animetaverse became their refuge. Fruitful beginnings were found through the grit and determination of those lucky 15 million to step through a soul gate and into a second chance. Mother Earth was no more, Natum became their father, Umbra their home, and Eden their cradle from the harsh reality that loomed overhead. Natum's lifeless surface, a radioactive hellscape destined to bear no fruit for eternity. The strange web slung across Eden's ceilings, sheltering them from this certain doom, was finally given a name. Umbrella they called it, a blessing, for without it, the fury of Natum's dual suns would rain down upon them. After many years of life in Eden, it had remained intact, its origin still unknown, but its beauty induced the same entrancing wonder as seen back in NW1. These new era designations became the timeline norm, NW standing for New World and OW for Old, with the Mint being the defining point in between. Life in Eden had continuously progressed as the 10 valiant pioneers finally took a break from charting Umbra's lesser-known regions. An emerging town made up of adventurers known as Unbound was on the rise and making significant progress alone, allowing the pioneers to spend more time focusing on bettering their communities, helping those in need, and raising the bar for the model citizen. This commendable work wouldn't go unnoticed, for better or worse. Constantly reminded of your status as a herald of change, a life of peace was off the table, and Annie seized this opportunity to forge each couple into inspiring and marketable representatives of Eden's 5 cities, that being Solace, Resolute, Archive, Harvest, and Precipice. No longer were they just the stoic explorers paving the way for the future, they were the future in the eyes of the public. Annie, the New World Order, and the Corporate Council's unification became known as the Trinity. Over time, their ambitions extended beyond the confines of the Umbrella's embrace and up onto the Forbidden Surface. A plan was set in motion to construct a megacity large enough to house the entire population of Eden. All 5 cities would be merged into one unified metropolis, lining the curved ocean bay that helped shape the subterranean Umbran expanse long before humanity's arrival. It is for this reason that it would be called Crescent City. To achieve this dangerous feat, the forging of a technological marvel was required, merging samples of the Umbrella with microscopic robots to create a new climate supported solely by nanotechnology. On the surface, this barrier would be able to create weather patterns, alter temperatures, provide a preferable daylight cycle, and guard those beneath it from the deadly solar rays that pervade the planet. This would in theory create the first known hospitable environment on Natum's crust. Secondly, a natural barrier of sand spanning hundreds of miles would have to be created, transported, and shaped into a formation of mountainous dunes that would protect the city's surroundings from the dangers of the lands beyond. Unbeknownst to the public, this stage had already begun during the Founders' Sprint, several years before the transition. This all took place in a region beneath the sheer cliff face known as Eden's Edge, where the industrial city of Precipice lies. A cavernous basin made up of nothing but rocky sediment that was reduced to sand by the megacorporation Terrascape. Rumours have spread that this vast pit used to in fact be an entire third of Eden's lush landscape. However, Terrascape and the Trinity denied allegations of environmental devastation. The fine particles and noise that bellowed up from this region known as the Dust Bowl made Precipice the least favoured city to live in during the Umbran era. These operations were poised to be the most ambitious and perilous since the inception of the Mint, yet they were still missing a final piece. A fearless militant group willing to tread into the unknown, deploy the shield and protect the creation of the Great Dunes until completion. The choice was a large matter of political intrigue among the remaining sovereign states and corporations now making up the Trinity. After a short electoral process, a dependable task force known for playing a pivotal role throughout Japan's old world history was selected. Designed to endure the fiercest onslaughts of mortality itself were the Koshin Shah, better known as Marchers. These warriors exhibited unparalleled discipline and experience in Mother Nature's harshest environments, marking them as the only force capable of completing the mission. Destined to be the first humans to tread upon the surface of Natum, their footsteps would carve legend into the planet itself. As they breached the airlock, the blinding green haze of Natum's skies poured in like the plug of hell was finally pulled up. Then they saw it. The blasted burgundy skin of this accursed planet that had shaped children's nightmares for years. Even to the Marchers, this landscape looked far worse than Earth in its final moments. Snuffing their distracting thoughts in an instant, they got to work, hastily surveying the designated positions where the shield would soon make its exit from Umbra. Something grappled with their minds on the surface. Whispers carried in the wind, footsteps reverberated, and paranoia inched closer with every waking breath. Lucky for them, until the first stations were operational, their oxygen tanks would only last so long before they had to rein it in. Unfortunately, on the third excursion, life above Umbra was discovered, and it quickly became apparent that this would be a treacherous journey of anguish and honor, minor hurdles in the way of insurmountable achievement. The birth of the shield was a defining moment for the remnants of humanity, particularly for the denizens of Resolute. The Great Pyramid, at the heart of their city, now known as the Chrome Cenotaph, pulsated with life as it bled from its vents what looked like streams of liquid metal. A myriad of nanobots, each a speck of a collective purpose, ascended towards the airlocks. It wasn't long before the steady flow began to surge, gushing beams of chrome towards the surface along predetermined trajectories. Crowds gathered beneath Eden's openings and watched in awe through the umbrella's hazy exterior as the shield flowed into the atmosphere, spreading like water into a vast concave dome that eclipsed Natum's twin suns. Day turned to sudden night, and the people of Eden found themselves shrouded in artificial dusk. Silence beset the land, as specks of light began to descend from the black. Shifting from color to color, the shield was forming what appeared to be an aurora. The quiet went from eerie to mesmerizing, as the cold glow shone down through Eden's gaps onto the faces of millions below, and slowly, as the aurora faded, so did the false night, letting the dawn of a new age shine through. This profound event was met with mixed opinions. The Trinity publicized many strong reasons as to why this was a necessary step for mankind: overpopulation, risk of cave-ins, and resource sustainability, to name a few. However, all did not believe this migration was necessary, especially the members of a new religion that revered the umbrella, known as Vealism. This order believed the umbrella, or as they called it, Veil, to be a god, a holy entity responsible for humanity's survival, not to be neglected and tossed aside for the greed of the Trinity. Much like the lingering religions of the past, the broader populace mostly saw the Veilic faith as a cult of fanatics made up of those who'd abandoned their old gods after Earth's fall, clinging on to what residual faith remained unsatisfied. As each new night in Eden was graced with a uniquely colourful radiance blurred through the umbrella, the shield became known as the Aurora. Over time, it would aid humanity greatly in purifying the lands above, weakening anything sodden with radiation, and laying the path for the future. Years went by, as conflict raged on the surface of Natum. The Marchers faced many challenging periods defending Terrascape's operations in the construction of the Great Dunes. The terrors of the surface proved fierce foes, monsters unlike any we had witnessed before. Major setbacks were common during this time, and countless lives were lost to the fury of Natum. Yet, through this pain and anguish, mighty leaders emerged to guide the Marchers to victory upon victory. Countless trophies soon fell motionless, buried beneath rolling sands and paving the way for the promised land that would become Crescent City. As the monolithic towers began rising from the ground, it was clear that the unwavering might of the marchers had successfully solidified humanity's future. The Great Dunes were complete, and after 12 relentless years, they had achieved what felt like their ultimate purpose in a long line of accomplishments, leaving behind a victory that would forever be remembered as legendary. Sadly, as they knew, this was far from the end. It was crucial for this victory to endure. In the years that followed, the marchers established outposts along the brink, a vast transitionary plain lining the inner edge of the Great Dunes. This provided a welcome change for these warriors accustomed to a nomadic lifestyle. From these outposts, they could now plan operations in a mostly peaceful environment away from the harsh weather conditions that plagued the dunes and the rest of Natum, now known only as Land Beyond. Crescent City's skyline was finally taking shape, and as the heavy lifting was out of the way, 2 new factions were stationed on the surface to aid the marchers in cleansing the remaining regions. Harvest City's astute rangers, clad in their fine-coloured jackets and wide-brimmed hats, were the first pick. These stoic conservationists, predominantly hailing from the Old World USA, had been privileged defenders of most agricultural produce over the past 26 years of life in Eden. Now transferred to the surface, at the base of Mount Midnight, they would be made responsible for taking care of the hazards plaguing the mountain that dominates Crescent City's eastern front. For all their hard work in the years providing for Eden, the Rangers were granted the opportunity to bring their families to the newly built town of Prospect to remain for the foreseeable future. Here, beyond city limits, they would start a new way of life, marking the beginning of the Western Wilds. On the other side of the city's skeleton, Crescent Bay remained tainted with hostile marine life posing a threat to expansion in and around its waters. A new group known as the Leviathans, composed of those with naval prowess and courage drawn from Earth's vast seas, was rallied to the surface. Tasked with establishing underwater purification plants dubbed Abyssal Sentries, they plunged into the depths where darkness reigned supreme. These installations, powered by hydrokinetic energy, were designed to cleanse the waters, neutralizing the pervasive toxins and purifying the bay. Similar to the Marchers' Times of Sand and the Rangers' Rise to Midnight, the Leviathan's Tide became an ongoing effort in the final chapters of Crescent City's formation. The great sacrifices made by these 3 factions would see them heralded as the founding fighters. As the time for the migration drew closer, another era-defining invention would begin to reshape the concept of travel in Eden. Magnetic propulsion technology, colloquially known as MagTech, introduced a revolutionary metro system unlike any other. This cutting-edge development led to the construction of stations both subterranean and above ground, but with the absence of tracks. Unlike the industrial ground elevators that had aided all construction on the surface, the marvel of MagTech allowed trains to vertically navigate the void between Umbra and the surface. This architectural and engineering feat not only symbolized the leaps of progress made by humanity on Natum, but also marked a new chapter in the way people connect within this expansive new world. Meanwhile, as boundaries were being broken and the evolution of mankind was accelerating to new heights, it was clear that something was wrong with the Umbrella, at least in the eyes of resolute biologists and Valak followers, a brief moment where science and religion agreed. The Trinity assured the populace that everything was in order as large-scale transfers to the surface continued. However, Animonsters started acting out of the ordinary, entering hibernation early as much of the flora within Eden slowly began to wilt. The Umbrella was decaying, and large patches were flaking from the ceiling. It was theorized that due to the rays of Natum's suns being filtered through the aurora, the Umbrella was no longer receiving the required nutrients to survive and continue its function as a protector of Eden's wildlife. Amid this point in time known as the Emergence, public awareness caught like wildfire, and many chose to stand for their beliefs, remaining in Eden to fight for the survival of the ecosystem. Little did they know, they'd be forced to regardless. 10 months into the migration, with over 18 million above ground and 5 million below, the clouds within Eden grew thick with darkness, and what soon followed would shock many. but not the Valix, for this was prophesied. The tainted skies opened with rain as black as night firing down onto all beneath the collapsing umbrella. A gut-wrenchingly morbid sight to behold for those trapped beneath. As this tar-like substance coated the lands in slick despair, vast swaths of the umbrella began falling like meteors to the ground below. Pure chaos ensued, as in the days that followed, transfers to Crescent City were prohibited, and Eden's ceiling holes were closed off indefinitely, blocking all remaining light to the underground. Much like the auroras eclipsing on that fateful day, natural light ceased to exist. Each of Eden's cities went into imminent lockdown as the everlasting night for those in the underworld began. The stench of decaying habitats filled the expanse, followed by bloodthirsty animonsters from the surrounding zones venturing inland to feast on the remains. At the height of mass fear since Earth's fall, like a mirror image, human nature followed suit. Region-wide rioting saw the upheaval of all remaining authority in Eden. One by one, each city fell into convoluted gang warfare as a new political food chain struggled to find its footing. Outside their walls, the environment and animonsters within continued to sustain brutal annihilation from the invasive predators. For most life across the land, this felt like the slow and agonizing end of triumphs over adversity. Death seemed inescapable, the air heavy with blood, sweat, and tears. The once beautiful soundscape had transformed into a deafening echo chamber, where the wails of the damned drowned out all hope. In the midst of this despair, as the ferocity of Mother Nature unraveled like a blooming flower, all plants on the verge of death started to shed their blackened husks, revealing new forms that shone an otherworldly radiance, flooding Eden with an ocean of bioluminescent glow. As for the animonsters, they writhed in agony. Many perished under the immense transformations that ensued as they truly became acclimated to this new sunless cage. The consensus among humanity was that their emerging forms changed them for the worse. However, in the eyes of nature, they had simply become superior versions of their former selves, allowing all who could withstand change to escape extinction and drive their perpetrators out of their homeland. Although, this series of unfortunate events would leave Umbra and humanity's life on Natum forever changed. All the while, life in Crescent City was tumultuous for those becoming acquainted with the surface. Public outcry was rampant as friends and family continued to be torn apart by the events transpiring. To ease the unrest, the Trinity reactivated a single magmet station, assuring the populace that the toxicity of the airspace below ground had dissipated due to Eden's rebirthing. Before survivors of the Emergence could be evacuated, an insurgence carried out by the CCPD saw Solus purged of the two major gangs now dominating the fractured city. Soon after, evacuations began to see those who wished not to remain in Umbra granted safe passage to Crescent City. For most it was too late. However, for the Trinity, this temporarily quelled the rising tensions that threatened an insurrection. Yet still, in the aftermath of the Emergence, as life was reborn, the gangs of Umbra solidified their foothold on the corpses of the remaining four great cities, now devoid of law and order, marking the death of normality and innocence of life in Eden. In all this, the pioneers' name was slandered by those who once looked up to them for guidance. As their cities fell into ruins, their faces were front and center, now targets for the masses. The sanity of their minds spiraled further and further into this convoluted tragedy. Each couple handled the fallout of the Emergence differently, but they remained united, and more importantly to Annie, susceptible to their next offer, a deal of such scale that it would bring back the dead. Among the many preparations undertaken before the Mint, much like the tales of old, an ark was formed, a series of vaults that would ensure the safety of planet Earth's natural life beyond humanity, all housing millions of seeds from the plants that gave Earth its beauty, and embryos from the animals that gave it its character, all with the hopes that one day, old world life could be reborn on Natum. Unfortunately, in this state, Natum's natural environment couldn't allow for the survival of simple bacteria, let alone the entirety of Earth's offspring. The Aurora is making steady progress in expanding its capabilities, but for the time being, its godlike extent could only reach so far, marked off by the Great Dunes. With the fall of the Umbrella, this possible eventuality was now on the cusp of being achievable. Through years of vigorous testing, a new invention known as genomods was ready to be put to the ultimate test. Annie discovered that splicing human and Animonster DNA together could allow those willing to reap some of the incredibly strange and powerful abilities that were only exhibited by creatures native to Natum. Moreover, enhancing these already powerful genetic modifications with samples of the Umbrella rich in abnormally unique cells could allow for the direct creation of elements channeled from the fingertips of select humans, specifically the Pioneers. Operation Astra, a prized opportunity to start fresh for all the life forgotten in time and shift public sentiment on the Pioneers, rebirthing them as Annies and Animites, naturalistic heroes more akin to mortal gods.